Anti-VEGF has saved countless patients from going blind and has helped them live fuller lives. All of this would not have been possible without scientists, clinicians, the collaboration between industry, the National Eye Institute, and federal research funding.
The role of federal funding in the development of anti-VEGF therapy has been absolutely critical. It begins with the basic science that demonstrated the role of VEGF, or vascular endothelial growth factor, in ophthalmic disease. Federal funding then subsequently supported the critical clinical trials that allowed us to demonstrate the benefits of anti-VEGF therapy in diseases such as age-related macular degeneration, diabetic retinopathy, and retinal vascular occlusions. Those clinical trials now serve as the benchmark by which ophthalmologists in the United States and throughout the world manage their patients. The impact of these treatments is truly without measure. The return on investment for the dollars provided by the federal government to stimulate research in the anti-VEGF area, in my opinion, those dollars have resulted in treatments that now have a major impact on patients and in particularly Medicare beneficiaries' quality of life. These treatments prevent blindness. Prior to the advent of anti-VEGF therapy, more than 90% of patients who developed wet or neovascular age-related macular degeneration were blind within 1 year. Anti-VEGF therapy has reversed that loss such that less than 10% of patients who are on active anti-VEGF therapy become blind at 1 year. And remarkably, more than 50% of patients on anti-VEGF therapy maintain visual acuity of 20/40 or better. That level of acuity allows patients to drive, to read, to see their grandchildren. The financial return to the federal government also includes the decreased morbidity from injuries such as falls, diseases such as depression that are clearly associated with legal blindness. The impact of anti-VEGF therapy on our current healthcare system is considerable and has been revolutionary. The cost per injection varies significantly between the drugs that the physician and patient choose.
Since the advent of anti-VEGF therapy, the treatment of blinding diseases and Medicare has become the #1 expense for Part B drugs.
And in fact, the drug aflibercept, also known as Eylea, is now the most commonly prescribed and highest expense in the Part B drug space. When we combine aflibercept with another very effective branded anti-VEGF agent, ranibizumab or Lucentis, those two drugs constitute approximately 15% of the Part B drug expenditures. Now that sounds like a lot of money, but I would note that the price of those drugs has not been raised by either of the manufacturers since their onset into the market. And that dates back to 2006 for Lucentis and 2011 for Eylea. I would argue that when one considers the quality of life that all these treatments provide, that anti-VEGF therapy is among the most cost-effective treatments in all of medicine. Within the anti-VEGF space, we have 3 commonly used drugs. We have 2 drugs that are specifically approved by the FDA that were developed by industry. And we have another drug that was approved by the FDA for other diseases, but it was found through investigation funded by the National Eye Institute and others, that this other drug is often equally effective to the branded drugs. This drug is known as bevacizumab or Avastin, and it is approved for the treatment of cancers. But it was discovered by ophthalmologists that Avastin can also be effective as an anti-VEGF agent in the eye for the treatment of diseases such as age-related macular degeneration, diabetes, and retinal vascular occlusions. Well, why would that be important? It's important because the cost of Avastin is much less than the cost of the branded drugs. Avastin costs vary between $50 and $100 a shot. This is of critical importance for our patients who can't afford the higher priced drugs that are approximately $1,800 to $1,900 a shot. Even with insurance, in the current era of high copays and deductibles, many of our patients struggle to be able to afford the branded drugs. The use of Avastin has allowed us to open this therapy to people who may not be able to otherwise afford it. There have been studies that have looked at the potential savings that could occur if everyone was treated on Avastin as an initial therapy. And these run into the tens of billions of dollars over a decade. We know from data in the IRIS registry that currently approximately 43% of intravitreal injections are done with Avastin. If those injections were done with the branded drugs, the cost to the healthcare system and to the federal government would be significantly higher. The reason we know that Avastin is often an appropriate and effective alternative is because of the support from the federal government that has allowed us to perform clinical trials. These clinical trials have demonstrated the efficacy of Avastin across multiple diseases. This is not to say that Avastin is the right drug for everyone, but it does allow physicians to choose the most effective drug for each patient within the context of costs and also within the context of treatment burdens.
The future of anti-VEGF therapy is very promising. We know that this therapy can stop these blinding diseases.
But anti-VEGF therapy comes at a cost, and that cost is the need for close clinical follow-up. Many of our patients need to be seen as frequently as every month or two. This obviously results in significant logistical and transportation issues for our elderly patients. These issues have been aggravated by the pandemic. Ideally, what we would like to develop are therapies that are even better than what we have with anti-VEGF therapy and diminish the treatment burden. And there are some very promising technologies that are trying to do exactly that. The first involves drug delivery devices that could be implanted into the eye to allow for a slow, sustained release of anti-VEGF therapy, such that patients would only require treatment once every 6 to 12 months. A second therapy might involve gene therapy. This would allow us to turn a patient's eye into a mini factory that could actually manufacture anti-VEGF drugs within the eye and thereby eliminate the need for continuing injections. The third possibility is to identify drugs that will last longer, such that we may only need to do the injections once every 3, 6, or perhaps once every 12 months. Already, all of these technologies are in clinical trials, And we are very optimistic that these technologies will diminish the significant treatment burden associated with anti-VEGFs.